So, yeah, you might think Halloween,
Sure.
drive-in, earth tones, Jake Hamilton, beard, flannel. But what about drop-in home prices, everybody? What about this it would be a shock to me. The real estate market this season may not be what we all expect. And joining us now via Zoom, friend of the show, Mr. Matt Larissy. Matt, it is always good to check in with you, sir.
I appreciate you guys letting me on here. I got to admit, I'm a little disappointed I don't see either of you guys in flannels, but maybe not.
It's coming soon, my friend.
Yes, indeed.
Trust me, it is coming.
Yes, indeed. All right, Matt is here to help us break down the current state of the fall housing market here in Chicago. What would you say is the headline?
I'm calling it a fall push.
Okay.
So a lot of people think fall markets, it's going to be bad, and it's just kind of like what people assume, that the market's going to slow down. And one of two things normally happens in a fall market. You either see a frightful fall or a fall push. Last year we knew it would be a frightful fall due to the election. People get a little bit nervous, spend a bunch of money when you have like things that could be a little bit controversial or uncertainty, let's call it. But this year, the coast is clear. I think people are feeling pretty good, and we had a really busy summer season, and you couldn't get anybody down. So I think we're going to see a really strong fall push. I actually think the market's going to be better in September, October than it was in July and August.
Matt, I'm always so fascinated to talk with you because you're someone who, you have your finger on the pulse of the real estate market, not just in Chicago, but I think all over the country. At what point can you sort of kind of, I guess for lack of a better metaphor, like reading the tea leaves to sort of say, okay, clearly because X, Y, and Z have happened, this is what this upcoming season's going to be like? When do you start getting a vibe for what the fall is going to be?
About 6 months out.
Really?
So about 6 months out, I could kind of tell which way the wind's going to blow. And, I look for signs, and then I use that to try to anticipate where it's going to be. So let's use an example like the fact of the summer, right? We knew that a lot of people had these delay marriages, right, because of COVID, and people couldn't nail down any venues. So we knew that this was going to be a very busy wedding season. So what happens when you have very busy wedding seasons? You have a lot of people traveling. You have bachelorette, bachelor parties. A lot of people just got stuff going on. They also were talking a lot in February, March about like how this was going to be the busiest travel season we've ever seen, that more people are going to Europe. I mean, you guys did also, and a lot of people did, news things about like how a lot of the busy tourist areas were completely slammed.
Right.
And they were overbooked. So like I look at that and like, okay, well, if everybody's gone, and nobody can sit there and be in town for the weekend, because I kept asking people like, how many times are you in town this summer? And everybody's like, oh, maybe once or twice. I'm like, okay, well, if nobody's ever in town over the weekend, like how many people are gonna be buying, right? So I anticipate that we'd have like a slow back half of the summer, but then people are still gonna have to move. So then I was like, okay, well, if people are still gonna have to move and they're not gonna be around, like there's really not much to do in the fall other than go to a drive-in movie or like catch a football game, right? So it's like, well, maybe we're gonna strap back in and start buying again. And we're starting to already see that. We've seen inventory already spike within the first couple of days of, since, Labor Day hit. And I think it's the writing's on the wall.
Okay.
These are all the things I look for.
Well, let's dive in.
It's like reading a stock. It sounds not unlike the stock market.
He's got the forecast. Yeah. All right, so let's get hyper local. You said inventory's already up just in the last couple days since Labor Day holiday. Break it down kind of in neighborhoods. I remember one of the last times we checked in with you, Matt, you said River North and some of the downtown areas, tons of inventory as opposed to getting into the neighborhoods and the suburbs. What are you seeing right now?
I mean, we definitely seen, first off on a macro level, just a big spike in inventory since, Monday, right? So like, Tuesday and today we're already seeing a bunch of properties hit the market. Why is that? It's like I always say, we as humans, we use holidays as deadlines, right? So like, okay, well, I want to list, but let's just kind of pick this up and let's have everything prepped to make it live right after the holiday. So we've seen a lot of that stuff spike. We are still seeing more inventory in the downtown markets, like call it anywhere from South Loop up the Gold Coast, including the West Loop, where if you're under $1 million, you're hovering around about like 4.6 to 5 months of inventory. But the big one to look at is if you get above $1 million, you're hovering around 8 to 10 months of inventory, depending on which neighborhood. That's a lot of inventory. 4 months is a balanced market. You look at what I call the outskirts. Let's call it West Town up to Old Irving, and then pretty much like Lincoln Square down to Old Town. If you're under $1 million, you got about 1 to 1.4 months of inventory, and if you go above $1 million, you're still looking at like maybe 2 to 3 months of inventory. So those are still crazy seller markets. We don't have enough inventory to meet the demand. We typically see pricing growth kind of slow down in the fall. So I think some of the buyers are going to get relief on that front in the outskirts, which have been really hot. And I think if, you're looking for a little bit of a deal, downtown market, so where you're going to get the best price.
How about the suburbs?
The suburbs is still on a different level.
Okay.
We are seeing more price decreasing happening a little bit, right? So like your entry level houses, specifically single family homes, are still performing extremely well. Okay, extremely well. Like in every single neighborhood you can, right outside anywhere outside of like striking distance of Chicago, right? Let's call it like under an hour drive, right? But like what we're seeing is like their luxury market's starting to take a little bit of hit. You're seeing market time kind of start to build, et cetera. And I do think that even though we're going to see a fall push, I think that if you're in like more of a luxury market, this will be a good time to get a little bit of a better discount on that house than you would have maybe in the spring season.
Matt, you mentioned sort of, 6 months out being able to kind of read the tea leaves and sort of figure out what direction things are going. Not trying to put you on the spot right now, but is there a neighborhood in Chicago that maybe not this year, maybe not next year, maybe not even over the next 5 years, but is there a neighborhood where you're intrigued to see what might happen because, everyone's looking for what's going to be the hot new neighborhood that you're thinking, I just want to keep my eye on this one because maybe?
I'm telling you right now, I said last time that if I had to bet, and I will put a large sum of the money against anybody willing to bet me, that the most depleted areas right now is Gold Coast, River North, Streeterville, and I think those have the most room to grow. Guys, like Cranes did an article last week about how the prices have gone back to 1990. Literally 1990.
Whoa, wow.
Okay, like what other big city in the country has seen prices falling down to the 90s? Okay, so if you want to bet, it's like, okay, well, last time I checked, people still love the city, and we're seeing a lot of what I call boomerang buyers. So a lot of people moved away during the pandemic, and they moved to Florida or Texas, one of these places, and now they're kind of coming back, and they're starting to buy these high-rises again. So, you got prices that have dropped in some cases as extreme as the 90s. Do I think that's going to come back up? Yeah. So when we look at, where do I think the most price growth will grow, it's going to be where the area that got hit the hardest, where prices came down the most.
I actually, that tracks. I was on the phone, just a quick side note here. I was on the phone with a friend over Labor Day weekend, and he was saying the city was just jumping.
Yeah.
I moved to the burbs,
Sure. Matt,
so I don't, you know what I mean? I'm in suburb land at this point, but he said, we talked about the pandemic and how a lot of folks said the city kind of lost its identity a little bit, and now, hearing that over Labor Day weekend that it was. Did you find that?
I lived in Streeterville for many years and lived in Streeterville during the pandemic and saw exactly what Matt's talking about. And now this idea of, oh, that's interesting. Maybe
90s prices and 90s it's coming, prices, and Chicago's getting its groove back.
I talked with Matt last time we had him on the show. I was asking for advice on when I know when to buy, and it kind of sound. When you talk about sort of something like Streeterville, Gold Coast being in 90s prices, how long do we have to take advantage of that before other people are seeing it and the pendulum is swinging in the other direction?
Less than 24 months. I think we bottomed out. I think the light is at the end of the tunnel. Inventory levels have continually to go down. The only people who are really selling, especially if you get above $1 million, is what I call the Great Reset. People have reset their expectations and pricing back to pre-pandemic pricing. And, now's a great time to get in on a deal. This is when you could get a price where you look back 5 years from now and be like, I can't believe those guys were able to get it for so cheap. And then I'll be able to comment and say, well, you didn't believe that the market would come back, so you didn't have the courage to be able to kind of take advantage of the marketplace. Remember, you don't get rich in good markets. You get rich in bad markets. When there's blood in the water, that's when you strike. And if the blood is, heaviest right now in the city, that's where you got the most room to kind of make a couple bucks.
Matt, let me ask you this. I have two families very close to me in my life right now that are in the exact same predicament, and they keep getting outbid. Okay, they will make what they think are very strong offers. They're looking in the suburbs. Okay, they're looking for single-family homes in the suburbs right now, both of them. They will make an offer well above asking price. In some cases, $150,000 above asking, even in one case, $200,000. And what has been happening to them is that they will get not necessarily outbid on the amount, but somebody comes in with a cash offer that the seller says, all right, I'm going with the cash and not you guys. What would be your advice to people in that situation?
Well, this is a big thing that we see with all of our clients as well. And what I tell everybody is, first off, if you want to get a little bit of our pricing, and this is why we do so well in the fall, is I punt a lot of buyers. I say, well, if you're sick of getting outbid, buy in the fall, because even though we're going to have a fall push, the market's going to be really, I think, September, October will be better than June, July. I'm sorry, July and August. It's not going to be anywhere near as hot as like January to April, okay? So it's like, this is when you could get a little bit of a better price. And, if you're kind of more getting in outbid a lot, you just have to remember that you're going to have less demand. The other thing you have to do is look at asking price as kind of like a suggestion. And I think this is a big problem a lot of buyers go into is they see something's listed at 600 and they're like, well, I went to 650, so I went 50 over, and I thought I'd get a great offer. And what people don't understand is what a lot of agents do is they underprice it for a reason, right? So if like you tell me like, hey, I want 650 for it, I may say, let's list at 600. Because we might get like 800 for that place. Because people, when people see something such a great deal, people go absolutely crazy way over ask price. So what I would do is don't always like kind of just like look at the ask price. Look at what's been selling in the area and base it off of that. But if you automatically add like $50,000 to $75,000 off the ask price originally, so if you see something 600, you're like, okay, I know that's listed at 675. We get a bid starting at 675. This will be less stressful because you won't be thinking you're overpaying for it as much. Okay. The second thing you do is you waive your mortgage contingency, right? So every single deal is contingent on financing. Okay. Now, if you waive your financing contingency, that makes your offer as good as cash. Okay. So now you can compete with cash offers. And this is the big problem that people don't do is they don't waive that. So if you go against cash offers, you're going to choose cash all day. But if you're putting down 5% earnest money, you're waiving your right to financing. It's like, well, listen, it's as good as a cash offer. It's as good as it gets. And that's the way you're going to be able to compete to win in those areas.
Good advice there. I will be passing that along.
Yeah, Matt, we just have just about 60 seconds, but you used a word that I thought was really interesting just a few moments ago. You said you got to have the courage. How much does courage play a part in just making the right decision and making that jump?
It's everything, right? So I always say that real estate's a game. Those who know how to play win and those who don't lose, right? So like everybody mentally looks at real estate in some sort of way and like they can talk themselves out of it. And that's a big problem to watch for in the fall market, right? So like I talk about the fall market, the fall buyers, the one to always watch out for. The fall buyer is the chicken little syndrome. They always think the world's going to end next year. I know this can be terrible, so like I'm not going to be able to take advantage of the marketplace today. So what I tell everybody right now is don't fall into that fall buying category. Just note that like, this is the best time to buy. And if you want to get a better pricing before the spring, kind of take advantage of it. But don't listen to all the haters out there that can tell you like it's not a good time to buy in fall.
Wow.
Matt Larissy breaking it down for us
fascinated.
as always.
Fascinated.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Once again, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Anytime, guys. I'll come in next time. We'll all be in flannels.
Exactly.
That's it.
Cider, okay?
Start the beard now, baby.
Let's go. Let's go with Daenerys and Jake out to the drive-in in his Bronco.
Come
and watch
on, man.
Halloween, the three of us.
Yes.
Yeah, let's get it going.
Yeah, I'm in.
Have a great one,
Thanks,
Matt.
Matt.
Appreciate it.